Welcome to the Shameless Promo Podcast. I'm Quinn Ford, an introverted entrepreneur who used to shrink away from selling, and now I teach women how to sell for a living. Each week, you will find episodes that will help you grow your confidence in showing what you have to offer so that you can grow the business of your dreams. People need to hear what you have to say. You have to promote yourself shamelessly. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of the Shameless Promo Podcast. I'm your host, Quinn Ford, and today we're going to talk about the irresistibility factor. If you think about like that girl, right? The girl that you follow on Instagram and you're like, she's just amazing. She has something. If you are following her on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, you kind of know what I'm talking about. It's just like they have something that just makes you watch or makes you keep coming back. And we're going to talk about what that is for you today. We're going to talk about what makes you irresistible so that we can bring that out. But first, before we get there, I just want to set the mood. I've never done this on the podcast before, but I recently went to Coven, which is a local woman-owned, she's freaking amazing. Her name is Miranda, shop in Lakewood, Ohio, where I live. And it's called Coven because it's all about just like, alternative, witchy, healing. It just was such a nice energy to walk in there. And Miranda's amazing. So I actually got matches that are all different colors. Should I give you a little ASMR? Can you hear it? I asked her for the one that goes with the throat chakra because this year has been all about just opening up my mouth, talking to you. That's why the podcast is back. That's why I do a lot of videos and you hear my voice because that's kind of what I heard earlier this year. I was praying about it because I was trying to release a group and it just was not working. And I was like, God, what is it? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? And I heard it so clearly, like, open up your mouth and speak. So I've been trying to do it. So let's light this baby, shall we? I don't think I've ever lit like an actual match before. So we're going to try it. So let's try to see if we can do some ASMR. Let's see. Oh, first try, baby. Okay, we're going to light it. Ooh. Yes, I love having an actual match. I don't think I'll ever use my automatic one again. Okay, we have it lit. We're just going to ask the universe and all the powers that be that what I need and want to say to you today is going to come through. So I want you to really sit down with yourself. I would say, like, don't necessarily do this while you're driving. If you're just passively listening to it, come back to it, later, but just keep these things swirling in your mind because these are the things that are going to open you up to be that bitch. Ready? Ready. Let's go. Okay. The irresistibility factor. The first thing I want you to think about is carving out your unique positioning. When I say positioning, I mean in the market. So comparatively to other people who are doing something similar to you or resources that your ideal client would go to solve their problems, right? So when you think about messaging in your particular industry, I want you to think about it in two different ways. Number one, what is it that you do agree with, but you have a bit of a different stance on it, or you have a different way of looking at it? For example, I can speak from business coaching because I am a business coach. Money transparency, I agree with 100%. We should be transparent when it comes to money. How I think about it differently is that other people tend to express this in like 100K in 6 months, or make 10K months, or make your, 5-figure months, or whatever it is. And it's always like the money goal in the short period of time. And people will share numbers, but the language is tricky. So it might be sales versus actual cash collected. It might be just how they talk about the time period in which they made something. It doesn't actually like give you the full picture of everything they did before to get to that point. So that's kind of like where I defer, and really like transparency when it comes to money, of like pointing out those inconsistencies or the tricky language, or like being honest about how long it takes for new business owners to make that amount of money. So that's something I agree with, but have a slightly different way of talking about it or different perspective on it. And the second thing that I want you to think about messaging in your industry is, what do you disagree with? Is your industry pushing something that you just do not think works, or is misleading? I'm trying to think of an example again from business coaching. So something I disagree with: cold messaging. I hate it. I hate cold messaging. I don't think that you should just like knock on somebody else's door and walk right in, right? I just don't believe in it. Even when it comes to sales and in other things, like I would never buy something from somebody who just cold message me. So why would I want to do it? Right. And so I want you to think of those two things, like what makes you stand out that you agree with, but have a different perspective on. And then what makes you stand out because you just flat out don't agree with it. Right. And so those are two ways that you can solidify or like carve out your own positioning in your industry because your voice stands out. And then I want you to hammer in what makes you you. So hammer in the things that make you different because of those other things, but also hammer in things that you deeply value. Like, what do you stand for? What do you not stand for? Is your look completely different? Like, I know at first when I started, I just wanted to look like everybody else. Like I would wear, the clothes. I would dress up every time I got onto camera. I would, I would straighten my hair, and I did very like minimal makeup. Like I did not want to stand out in a bad way. And so I very much like erased parts of me so that I didn't stick out like a sore thumb. So now obviously things are different for me when I kind of realize the more you that you become, like the more people are attracted to you. And that's what makes you irresistible. Think about Rihanna, okay? Or Rihanna. I think that's what she calls herself. Think about Rihanna and just the irresistibility factor she oozes, right? She doesn't follow fashion trends. She creates them, right? She has a big ass forehead. We all love it. She does not hide it with bangs, right? She looks dewy all the time, even when the trend was matte. She wears menswear a lot, right? She wears like, dreads or like asymmetrical haircuts or fiery red, right? She's irresistible because she's her. She brings that like dynamic, fire, sexy vibe that's her, and it's representative of where she comes from too, right? And so when you think about yourself, what is you? Like, so you, the attitude, the flavor, the look, like what is so you that you need to bring through? Like, do you love wearing a red lip? Do you always wear heels wherever you go? Do you have $1 million smile? Like, whatever you feel like is a characteristic of you. And yeah, maybe it's a little bit different, or maybe it's a little bit weird, or maybe like something is a little bit off. Maybe you got crooked ears or whatever. That is you. It makes you you, and you need to hammer it in. So that's the first kind of chunk about the irresistibility factor. It's all about creating your unique positioning. Once you kind of like have a feel of what that looks like for you, I want to talk about sprinkling the razzle dazzle on your marketing. Okay. So basically, what makes you sparkle? What makes what lights you up and how can you bring that from the outside or from the inside out? I just feel like when I watch people that I like to watch every day or that I follow, I'm just like lit up by them because I can feel their energy. So whatever makes you like have a little twinkle in your eye, or like maybe you need to take that little sip of your coffee before you get on Instagram stories, or maybe you have to like hype yourself up listening to Cardi B, like whatever it is, bring that sparkle from the inside out, because people really vibe with energy. Like people, it's why I do a whole lot of video, like you being able to see my facial expressions, like my movements, the tone inflection in my voice, like all of that is what makes me sparkle, right? Because I'm thinking about things that I love. I'm talking about things that I love. And you can feel that, right? Like I will listen to Cardi B before I get on a sales call because I'm just like, let me get my energy there. So whatever makes you sparkle, whatever makes you come alive, do that so that your sparkle can exude from the inside out. Let's talk a little bit about pretty privilege, because I think that this is something that's been talked about very recently on social media. And I think that it's going to be a reason that a lot of you feel like you can't have the it factor or be that girl or whatever that is, because you're like, I don't have pretty privilege. Like I'm not traditionally attractive or whatever. It's probably not true. We are just such harsh judges on ourselves. So I do want to acknowledge that pretty privilege exists. I'm sure that it's gotten me somewhere on Instagram. I'm sure that it's gotten some of your favorites somewhere on Instagram, that people just like the way that they look, right? And things can help. Like I did my hair today. It's fresh, right? People like my curls. I have on makeup, right? My skin looks a little bit glowy and dewy, right? It doesn't normally look like this when I just wake up. I'm light skinned. I'm going to acknowledge that, right? I'm not the lightest, but I am a lighter complexion. I get that. I am mixed. I am a biracial Black woman. And so there's, colorism and just white supremacy and all those kinds of things that come with it. And so I want to acknowledge that pretty privilege exists. I don't think I can have this conversation without acknowledging that. And also at the same time, let you know that if you don't follow or you don't fit into traditional beauty standards, that does not mean you can't have an irresistible factor to you. That doesn't mean that you can't attract the people who want to know what you're doing, to want to know what you're up to and what you have to offer, right? And so I want to just acknowledge it, that it exists, and that it might be something that comes up in your mind and it might be a barrier. I don't think there's a solution, but I just want to acknowledge that it exists and it's there. And if it's in your mind, you're not crazy. And I'm not going to pretend like you thinking that is crazy. It's true, right? We all know it. So acknowledging it and know that you still can bring out what's irresistible about you. Let's talk about the language you use, because I think language, whether it's spoken or whether it's written in a caption, is really integral in that irresistibility factor, that feeling of like, ooh, what's she going to say? Or that feeling of like, ooh, that's me too. Like whatever emotions you're trying to evoke in your audience, you can do that through language. So what am I talking about? Do you have a catchphrase? I'm trying to think of somebody's. I can't think of somebody who has a catchphrase right now, but like, do you have things that like sayings that you say all the time and that comes up? Or something that I say all the time, and you probably do not even notice this because I say it in real life a lot and I write it a lot, but you probably don't even notice. Instead of 100%, I always say 1,000%, right? Because that is my way of saying like, I agree with you, girl. Like, yes, we're on the same page, 1,000%, right? And it also goes to like just work ethic for me of, I really want to make sure I'm giving myself to something. Like if I'm going to commit to something, I'm in it 1,000%, right? And so that's something that I say a lot. that might evoke some kind of feeling in people. I don't remember anything else that I say, but there's like certain quotes that you can use over and over, but it should mirror like what's real to you. Like, don't just like come up with a catchphrase, or don't just like come up with quotes that you say all the time just for having one. Like, it should really just match you. And this is also a good time to connect it to where you're from. Like, if you're from like Louisiana and you say something, that's a very Louisiana thing, like say that. If you are from New York, like say, dead ass and like really New York things, right? Like you should, if it's real to you, say it, because that language is going to be another layer of connector for your ideal clients. It's going to be another thing where they're like, oh, like, especially like accents for me, or things that remind me of like my mom, because my mom is from New York. So when people say like very New York things, I'm like, oh, that feels like home, even though it's not my home. I'm from Connecticut, but that's where a lot of my family is from. I just feel like people connect with people, and the more that you can feel like a person, the more that you can color in the picture and fill out the dimensions, right? You are not a one-dimensional person. You're like a three-dimensional or four-dimensional person. I don't know the dimensions anymore. They keep seeming to add, but you are a dynamic being that has flaws and that should sound like a person. You should sound like you, or a version of you at least. So language is very important. And then like any other ways you can show your personality too. Do you absolutely love to dance? Do that. Do you love rap music? Like incorporate that. Any like flavor that you can add. Think about this whole section, this whole sprinkle in the razzle dazzle on like you're seasoning the meal, right? So how can you give them this tasty entree and make it that much better, or that much tastier, or that much more irresistible by like doing a little sprinkle, doing a little seasoning, right? So anything that feels like you or looks like you, add it on. If you have nothing to do with fashion and beauty, if that is something that's important to you, like for me, I am just getting into it within the last like 2 years. And so you'll see me show a little OOTD sometimes, or you'll see me, with my makeup on. I'm learning how to do eyeshadow, you guys. I got the Kylie Jenner 24K palette and I'm trying, okay? Any little sprinkle, any little seasonings that you can give. Like if you want to incorporate some personal factors into your brand, do that, because like I said, people connect with people. Okay. Guess you might be building a brand, and you might even be building a brand that doesn't have your name on it. And that's okay, because you are still the face of your brand, or you at least should be, present in your brand, at least in the beginning. Some of my favorite brands that I follow their founders, and I watch their stuff way more than I watch their brands page, because I like people, right? I like getting to know them as a person. I like to know what they value and what they love and what they're up to and what they're eating. And I love like being nosy. People love being nosy, right? And so give them some of you, like show them some of you, because the buy-in that comes, like the level of buy-in that comes from being irresistible, that's like long-lasting relationships that you're creating. So give them someone to connect to. All right, let's move on to the next section. This is all about crafting relatable content and irresistible offers. So let's talk about the content first. When you are storytelling, when you're telling your story, or you're trying to tell your ideal client's story and connect it to you, or you're telling a client's story, whenever you're telling a story, you are going to tell it only through the lens of your ideal client. So for example, if my ideal client really wants to leave their job and they are afraid, I tell my story of leaving my job. And because transparency and honesty is one of my values, I also let them know that I did end up losing all of my money before my business took off and I got better at it. But that is going to be a connecting story, because my ideal clients are worried about that. Okay. And I want to show them like, yes, it could actually be possible. Your fears could come to fruition and you're still going to be okay. And it's still going to be worth it. Right. I had a career in HR. Not a lot of people know this about me, but that's where my career was before I ended up leaving corporate to work for a startup. And then I like worked in operations and all of that stuff. I don't talk about it because y'all don't care. You're not in HR. Like my ideal clients don't have a certain sector that they're coming from, right? There's no reason for me to talk about my career struggles because y'all don't want to build a career. Not even just in HR, but at all. You don't want to build a career. You want to build your business. And so the only thing that you care about my past career is that I left it. Right. And so I only tell my career story from the lens of leaving or being miserable and making the decision to leave. Right. I don't ever really talk about what I used to do for work. Does that make sense? So when you are crafting your stories, whether it's about you, whether you're saying something about your ideal clients or current clients, you're only going to tell the parts that matter to your ideal clients because it's like a mirroring. People love being like seeing themselves. So what you're doing is just mirroring what your ideal clients are struggling with or what they have struggled with or what they're trying to get to. So that's what you're doing. You're telling the story from the lens of your ideal client. So yes, it might be about you or it might be about somebody else, but you're only telling the parts that matter to them. Does that make sense? Okay. Be selective, basically, is what I'm saying. Every story isn't for your business, right? Your brand stories that you're going to pull out. You're going to pull out a few brand stories that are very connective for your ideal clients. And you're going to keep telling them over and over and over, just maybe in slightly different ways. You can't change the story because that's what happened, but the reasons why you're telling them might be different, or you might be telling like different parts of the same story, right? So that's a skill that you can build up. And that's what's going to make you irresistible because people feel like they know you, right? We always talk about know, like, trust. People feel like they know and like you and then trust you because you're mirroring them. They know, like, and trust themselves, right? I mean, to an extent, but they want to see themselves represented. They want you to understand them and see them and hear them. And by telling your stories through the lens of your ideal clients, you do just that very easily. All right. I'm going to stop talking about that because I feel like I could talk about that forever. Highlight funny human problems, like hashtag first world problems, right? You might have like funny everyday human stories that can really connect to your ideal clients. You can have very human stories that paint the picture of maybe they're not, always positive, but they're like a little bit funny, or it's a little bit of like social commentary even. And that can work to humanize you. And I could give you a little bit of a more like edge almost of like why they would pick you over other people because you get it, right? You're just like them. You can also use humor, memes, pop culture, all of that kind of stuff, because I think that like one thing I always say is if I didn't build this business, I would have a podcast all about Bachelor Nation. I would just get on here after every time I watched an episode of The Bachelor or Bachelorette or Bachelor in Paradise, and I would like talk about the episode, but I don't want to build a business around it. So I sprinkle it in sometimes, like in my stories mostly is when I will talk about the latest episode of Bachelor in Paradise is what we're on right now. And then I might joke about how Connor's ukulele playing, waiting for Marissa to come home from her date, was really used as a soundtrack to her making out with Riley on their date. It's just hilarious stuff, right? And like good TV. And so I might talk about that kind of stuff because I love watching it, or, Manifest getting its 4th season or whatever, right? Or music that I infuse into posts because again, the whole point of this is making you a whole ass person because somebody wants to work with you. They don't want to work with your logo. They don't want to work with your branding colors. They don't want to work with, that graphic that you posted. They want to work with you. And so they want to connect with you. Instagram is a weird place where people want to connect with what you're doing and what you'll do for them, but they also want to connect with you as a human being. Like, I think a lot of people who work with me, yes, of course, they know that I know what I'm doing, and they also trust that I can help them, but they also just like me. Like, we spend 6 months together. If you work with me one-on-one, we spend a lot of time together. So I feel like that's a big factor in choosing when you want to work with someone. If that's somebody you can like be excited to get on a call with every week, or it's somebody who you feel like is in your corner, or I'm sure a lot of my clients feel like a friendship almost with me, where like we can talk about other things, or they can, WhatsApp me and voice note me, and we can just like talk back and forth, because they like me. Think about it when we're voting for politicians, right? They always say like, you vote for people who you would like to go and have a beer with, right? So it's kind of the same thing of like making yourself a human being. Like, you have so many amazing things about you, and you don't have to limit yourself or paint like a one-dimensional picture of yourself just so you can show up and sell. Like, the selling happens because you are a whole person, and you are able to talk about the things that are really interesting to you and the things that you love, and people are able to see that and they're attracted to it. That's the irresistibility factor. Okay, so the last thing I want to mention about content is that you have to say the same things over and over and over. Like, it's imperative that you have brand pillars for your content, that you're talking about the same tenets over and over and over, that you are hammering in the things that you think make you different, the catchphrases, the stories that you tell over and over and over, like even down to the type of music you use or whatever. Like, give them a picture and then solidify it by doing it over and over and over again. If you think you're being annoying, you're probably doing it right? Because not everybody's clocking you 24/7. Or like, they might have missed that story, they might have missed that post, and you have to say it over and over and over. I think it's like 7 to 12 times before somebody like recognizes that they're seeing something. So be annoying, basically, is what I'm saying. Let's talk about your offers. So number one, listen to people's problems and then solve them. So you can have one offer that's like an offer that encompasses a lot of stuff. You can have a offer suite that has, an ascending like model. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I say keep it as simple as possible. But if you're like, I want the whole shebang, cool, whatever, that's your business. I want you to be solving problems. People have problems, and the only reason they're coming to you is to see if you could solve their problem. And then they get all of this razzle dazzle and they're like, oh yes, she's the one. But when it comes to the core of it, you have to be able to solve their problem. So this kind of rolls into the next thing that's about promise / end result. So what are they going to get from your offer or your offers, whatever you have, right? Is it going to solve their problem? Is the end result them in the position where they want to be? And the only way that you can get there is really just listening to your people, talking to them, doing the market research, really like seeing what they're saying in comments, having voice note, DM conversations back and forth, like working with clients and working with your ideal clients, seeing what they're struggling with, So you have to, at the core, be solving problems in your offers to make them irresistible. And I would say, like, if you know what your client wants, if you know the end result that your ideal clients want to get to, that has to be your promise. That has to be what you build your offers around, because why would they want it if it doesn't solve their problem, right? And so if it's a big promise, if it's a big end result, and you're nervous about, not getting them there, know your responsibility in it. Like, you are supposed to show up, you're supposed to provide the resources, you're supposed to provide the roadmap or whatever, right? To get them to the end result. Whether or not they get the end result while they're with you, like, that's up to them. But you have to be showing up and be providing that so that it's possible for them to have that at the end if they follow like every single thing, right? A lot of times you'll follow up with people who you've worked with and they've gotten the result after they've worked with you because maybe it just took them a little bit more time, but you have to provide what it takes to get there and then support them along the way. So go for the big promise. If you need to give yourself more time and extend your container, if you need to fraction out the big promise and truncate it into smaller smaller bits to it. And then that's the way that your offer suite goes. Great. But your end result should be what they actually want. That's what makes it irresistible. And then run the same thing over and over. Just like I said with content, right? Say the same thing over and over. With your offers, run the same thing over and over. I think that this was probably my biggest mistake. I'm going to just say that. My biggest mistake as an entrepreneur, and what has slowed my growth, which I think I could have probably hit 100K last year instead of this year if I would have done this. Listen to me, okay? Run the same things over and over and over. The people that I know that I'm biz besties with who are doing so super well, they have run the same programs over and over and over. You have to build brand awareness. People have to know what you're doing. People have to identify an offer with you. And it makes it so much easier. It's not like you're starting from scratch each launch, or you're not constantly talking about a bunch of different things, right? They start to identify your offer and link it to you because you're running it over and over. And you have the social proof of the results because you keep running the same thing over and over and over. And so that's been a big thing for me this year of just simplifying and just offering one-on-one. I've now started creating content mapping, which is another offer, but I'm running that with my current clients so that I can get that social proof and I can get the kinks out. But I've run the same thing over and over and over this year. My one-on-one 6 months, people know that's what I do. And eventually I'll have another offer that becomes that. But I had to take a step back because I was trying so many different things. Even if you're doing the same thing and like changing the name a bunch of times, that also like messes with people. It feels like it's something different. And so don't be the person that's just onto something different each month. Like really try to have to run the same offers over and over and over and create that consistency for yourself and for your audience. All right, final thing, no pressure sales. That's a part of making you irresistible. No pressure sales. This is something that I get told all of the time. And so I'm going to give you, this is my secret. It's no pressure sales. That's why people end up saying yes to me a lot, because it's no freaking pressure. You could say no. You could walk away. I'm totally fine with that. And I'm not going to fault you for that. I'm not going to be mad at you, right? You have to make the best decision for you. And so no pressure sales. Number one, the only way to do it well, like to come off as authentic, for them to actually know it's no pressure, is for you to work on your damn self. I'm going to say it again. The only way to really be authentic with the no pressure sales approach is to work on your damn self, because most of the time, the pressure that you're putting on it is coming from you, your insecurity, your worry, your fear, your lack mentality. Like it's all putting the pressure on the sale, and they can feel it. They can feel it because it's exuding from you. The desperation is exuding from you. Okay. You have to work on yourself. You have to get to the point where you're like, if it's not this person, they're still coming. The next person's coming, right? More clients are coming. If this person says no, it was the best decision for them, and therefore it's the best decision for me. Then the next part is, once you work on yourself and you're really getting that mentality going, right? You have to let them come to you, because if you're coming from the energy of my people are coming, open arms, I'm going to hold space for the next person. If it's not this person, it's going to be the next person. All of that energy is allowing them to come to you, right? My whole thing is like magnetic marketing, right? We have to allow ourselves to shine so bright that people come to us. Like, how much different is the energy of you cold messaging, or you chasing somebody who said that they were interested, or you following somebody who ghosted you on a sales call or whatever, right? That energy versus somebody sliding into your DMs and being like, oh my gosh, I've been watching you for the last 6 months. I'm loving what you were saying. How can I work with you? Or some lurker just booking a call. That's what most of my people don't ever talk to me. They just book a call. And I love that. And that's the type of person I am too. And so that's why they're mirroring me, right? But it's possible to just let people come to you. And I know that sounds scary when you don't have a client yet, or when you don't know where your next client is coming from, but genuinely you have to work on yourself to help that scarcity. And if you have to go get a job because your money is funny in your business and you're like, I just feel so desperate for the next client, get a side job, get a full-time job, get a contract, because you're going to botch your sales if you yourself feel that scarcity, that first layer, that foundational layer of the hierarchy of needs, right? If your net isn't covered, you are going to, like, that desperation is going to come out of your pores. They can feel it and you're going to chase them away. So no pressure sales. You have to work on yourself and you have to let them come to you. That doesn't mean you can never like talk to people casually. Of course you can, but the pressure needs to be off. Okay. Also, don't feed into their BS. This is something I see all the time, that people botch their sales because you feed into their stories, their fear stories. No, you don't understand. That's something I see all the time when I do mock sales calls with people is like you agreeing with them when they come up with a sales objection or a fear story. No, you don't agree. No, you don't understand. And you can come with the energy of compassion. You know why they're saying this, or you know why they're thinking this, but don't get into the pit with them. You know, you have to still be the person up here who is shining the light and who has the rope down, right? How can you hold the rope and get into the pit with them? You can't, right? So don't feed into their BS. And again, this is going to require working on you, because sometimes people, your ideal clients, because they're mirroring you, they will say something that triggers you. They will give an excuse that you use, right? So there's one person who I coached on this about the sales objection of, I need to talk to my husband. And it would trigger her so much because she used to use that excuse to get off of the phone with people so that she didn't have to make a scary decision, right? For me, when people give me that response, I'm like, yeah, totally. That's not a trigger for me. That's not something I even really hard coach on, because I believe that you and your husband, or you and your wife, or you and your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, you're partners. Why shouldn't a decision be run by both of you? Do I still know that that's an excuse? Hell yeah. But the way that I coach through it, or the way that my energy goes into it, doesn't make them like use that as an excuse. Like, it's a genuine thing, if that makes sense. So work on yourself so that you can help them, so that you can actually help them and not be like in doom and gloom and in despair in the pit with them. The only way you can guide them through is if you are neutral. So you have to be neutral in your sales process of, this person, I just want them to make the best decision for them. And if it's not me, I'm cool with that. But I'm going to help them while they're on the phone with me, right? And the last thing is be transparent. People like that. So I had somebody who's booked a sales call with me. I haven't talked to her yet. And as of me recording this, I don't remember when we're talking. So we might have talked since now that you're hearing this. But she was DMing me and saying like, I know we're talking, but, and then she was asking me questions, and she asked me how much it was. And because she wants to be prepared, right? She wants to make sure that she doesn't waste her time or my time even, and not be able to afford to work with me. Totally fine. Some of y'all freak out when people ask how much your service is in the DMs before they ever talk to you. And you're like stressing out. You're like, you know, what should I say? How can I deflect this question? And my thing is, if it's truly no pressure, if you have no pressure or no attachment to this next person being your client, if you know more people are coming and they need you more than you need them, why not tell them the price when they ask? Why not let them select themselves as, yes, I can do this, or no, that I can't? You can still have that conversation. Like, I'm not telling them so that I don't have to get on the phone with them. Like, we still get on the phone, but at least they come into it knowing, right? And I only say it when they ask. And so transparency is huge for me when it comes to sales. Like, being honest. I have people all the time ask me, do you really think my niche is going to be profitable? My answer to that is yes. Most of the time your niche is going to be profitable. There's not certain niches that are more profitable than others. It's your deep desire to serve people in that niche that makes you irresistible. So I always answer questions transparently. You don't have to freak out if somebody asks you how much your service is before they have the sales conversation with you. You can answer it, or you can choose to just have it on, the checkout page or whatever it is. And you don't have to be afraid. You don't have to white knuckle that person. Don't claim that client as your client before they're actually your client. Know what I'm saying? Remember that they need you, right? They're looking for help and you can help them. So, in answer to the original question, yes, you can be that girl. Even if you're not skinny, even if you're not white, even if you're not whatever, right? You can exude the irresistibility factor because it's specific to you. We talked about carving out your unique positioning. We talked about sprinkling the Razzle Dazzle, the little seasoning into your marketing. We talked about creating relatable content and an irresistible offer. And then we talked about no pressure sales, and all of those things have those little subsets to think about. But those four things are going to help you pull out what is absolutely irresistible about you, so that you can show up on Instagram, you can market your little heart out, you know that people want what you have, and you can sell with ease. You have the it factor. You just have to bring out what's irresistible about you. I hope that this helped. I really do. I know it's a lot of information. So if you have to go back to it and you have to work in each chunk and flesh out what that looks like for you, I would highly suggest that. So I'm just going to say each section again, right? Write this down. You ready? Pause this, go get your stuff, and then come back so you can write it down. The irresistibility factor, the 4 chunks. Again, carving out your unique positioning. What's the messaging in your industry? What do you agree with, but say it in a different way? What do you straight up disagree with? And hammer in what makes you you. Chunk number 2, sprinkle in the razzle dazzle in your marketing. What makes you sparkle from the inside out? We touched on pretty privilege. The language that you use, catchphrase, anything you say super often, language connected to where you're from, what's part of your personality. Do you love to dance? You love rap music, whatever. Sprinkle that shit in. Chunk number 3, crafting relatable content and an irresistible offer. Under content, we talked about telling stories from the lens of your ideal clients, being selective, highlight funny human problems, humor, memes, pop culture, like sprinkle that in, infuse it into your content, and then say the same thing over and over and over because they need to hear it. And for your offers, listen to your people's problems, solve one of those problems. We talked about having the promise or end result be what they actually want, and then running the same offers over and over and over. So you create that brand awareness and you're also able to get better results that way. And then the final chunk, no pressure sales. Working on your damn self is number 1. Let them come to you. Don't feed into their BS. And again, this loops back to working on your own shit. And be transparent because people like that. So you are that bitch, like we said. You are that girl. You have the X factor. You have the it factor, whatever you want to call it. And you just need to identify it so you can bring it out. I would love to hear from you. If you liked this episode, DM me, come over to Instagram, hang out with me. I really want to hear how you felt about this and what you discovered doing this process. So what makes you special? What makes you sparkle? What makes people attracted to you? I want to talk about it. Wait. This is Future Quinn speaking. I wanted to catch you before you leave because I have a very special surprise for you since you listened to this podcast episode. So if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that I am hosting a live masterclass called Relatable Queen, and it's all about reigning in your Instagram domain. So, because you listened to this podcast episode, I'm going to give you a special code. The code is podcast. And when you type podcast into the coupon code before you check out for Relatable Queen, you'll get $10 off. So the link is below. It's a little bit long, so I'm just going to drop it below, or it's in link in my bio on Instagram. And again, all you have to do is enter the code podcast and you will receive $10 off when signing up for Relatable Queen. I love you guys. I am so grateful for your support, and I hope that this token of appreciation finds you well. I'll talk to you next week. Bye. And there you have it. Thanks for rocking with me this week, but the party doesn't have to end. Come hang out with me and continue the conversation over on Instagram at Shameless Promo Coach. If you enjoyed this episode and feel so led, go ahead and rate and review Shameless Promo if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, and make sure that you're subscribed, or follow my podcast over on Spotify. I'll see you next week, same time, same place, with another episode. XOXO, Shameless Promo.